So I also have the privilege of representing Anya Kivarkis' work. Anya is a professor at University of Oregon, and I think for at least 10, 15 years has been really a great thinker in our field. I know that Anya is part of a collective of really impressive, brilliant women that are kind of moving metals, jewelry, ideas of adornment, and all of these things forward in our world. And it's a really incredible pleasure for me to be part of that. So I'm excited to have Anya here. I'll skip this person for now. Ivan, oh my gosh.
Drpić.
I did practice it a couple of times. Yeah, Ivan Drpić is here. And at Lori Talcott's request, she's super excited that he agreed to be part of this conversation. And Ivan is a professor of Byzantine art at UPenn and focuses on jewelry, objects, and all of the things that Lori Talcott is interested in and loves. So I'm super excited about this. I'm also excited to introduce Lori Talcott, who's sitting in the middle here. This is her exhibition. She's been working on it forever. And but just basically how long you work on something, right? When someone comes into my gallery and says, how long did this take? I'm always like, a lifetime, right? Because this is how you get better and this is how you grow your work. So it's really wonderful. It's really a pleasure to see such a mature, exciting, evocative and passionate person create an evocative and passionate body of work. And I feel like it's a privilege for me, and I also feel like it's a privilege for all of us to be here and experience this. So it's going to be a great talk. You guys come in. Yeah, it's casual. Your eyes haven't adjusted to the light, they will. After a little bit, just push in, sit down. We're going to do about 40, 45 minutes, something like that, unless you start to look tired, and then we'll open up for some conversation. And you're welcome to stay as long as you're interested. So thank you and welcome. Thank you.
There we go. So thank you all for being here. We're so delighted to have Ivan here to talk with Lori from an art historical perspective. And I'm kind of here, we can kind of ground the work ground the ideas in the objects themselves too. So we'll kind of think through the objects up here and sort of bring them back down and back up again. So Ivan, I think you have the first question.
Okay, I will. First, let me just express how grateful I am to be here. It's truly a delight. I have known Lori since my time in Seattle. I was teaching at the University of Washington for a period of time, and I was introduced to Lori by a colleague exactly at the time when I was developing a project, very initial stage of project that deals with medieval jewelry, and specifically with objects that are worn on the body, various religiously significant objects worn around the neck. And it was such a pleasure to meet Lori and discuss topics that were of mutual interest. And what I particularly appreciated is the fact that Lori was reading pretty much the same kind of scholarship that I was reading, so some historical works by scholars of medieval art, including the great Cynthia Han, who is here with us tonight. But also some theoretical work of people like Tim Ingold or Jane Bennett, or the old classic Ananda Kumaraswamy. And so the first question I would like to pose has to do with this kind of two-sided, this combination of artwork and scholarship that I find really fascinating. So, Lori, your work is informed by scholarship, and I would like us to talk a little bit about that aspect. So, what does it mean for artwork to be informed by scholarship, and conversely, how does your process, the act of making inform how you engage with scholarship?
So yes, my work is definitely research driven, and what I usually do is come up with a concept that I'm interested in, and then I use it as a way to locate myself in a constellation of thinking, making, periods, art historical periods, different cross-cultural references. And I sort of think of it as this constellation. I'm here, and then I start making connections to these different things. So there's a sense of atemporality to it. I try to, I like the idea of being outside of time, and
Lori, what does atemporality mean? I actually just don't know.
okay. So, well, that we're outside of time. It's not time specific, but the concepts can transcend time. And so I think of that, and then I flesh those ideas out with serious reading and research, and find the grounding or the foundation for my work. But of course, I don't want my artwork to feel pedantic or weighed down by the ideas. So I think of it as like when you're building a bridge or an arch, you build a false work, a beautiful, beautiful scaffolding false work. And that's the only way that the bridge will stand. But when the bridge is built, you remove the false work. But yet it still ghosts the place that it was. So there's a tension or a residue of the thinking, and that is drifting around the bridge that's been made. And that's how I like to think about the work, that it's not, you can't just see the scholarship in it, but you sense that something serious has taken place, and that there's a depth to it. So that's how I think of it, as a false work that is then removed. And because some work can be very literal in the world, and it's not, although I am using letters and things, I guess that is literal, but that's a different thing. So I want my work to be met with on many levels. So I want it to meet people where they are. So it can be affective, or it can be in all these layers. And then most definitely, I've worked with, going back to how does being a maker, I'm a goldsmith, and I'm trained as a goldsmith, and I'm a metalsmith, and that has informed scholarly work that I did. I'm proud to say I'm an art history graduate school dropout, and but when I was engaged with that, and I thought I was going to be an art historian, my background in everything I looked at was through the lens of a maker. So whatever I was looking at, it was like, well, that's great, whatever it was we were reading or considering, but what were people wearing? What were they wearing, and why were they wearing it? So I always looked at that, and especially, of course, the jewelry. And then I got the privilege to work with a couple of Iron Age archaeologists in some experimental archaeology work, and that was really fantastic. And so I got to be the person that was, these archaeologists directed me to do things, and they had certain questions. But the most uncanny and beautiful experience with that was with Nancy Wicker, who is an Iron Age archaeologist, and she specializes in these brakteater, which are these gold pendants that have been found by the millions across Europe from the migration period, around 300 or so. And it wasn't just that she wanted to watch me make one, which is super interesting because they didn't use draw plates at that point, so everything was block and strip twisted, which is a lot of work. I would have loved to have had a studio assistant for me to do that. And so that was fascinating, but that wasn't her main question. I was trained in an oral folk art tradition, so outside of the academy, doing a folk tradition. And that is about learning a visual language that then you apply to something, working within a framework, not making a copy of something, but learning the language so that you can make an iteration within the tradition. And you can't read instructions. You can only learn that by being embedded in the tradition and learning it that way. So what she wanted to do was to show me hundreds of pictures of these braktiater, and then slowly let me decide what I wanted to make, and with all those elements. So within that framework, design one, and then she would document me making it. Well, there was a really uncanny moment that really references Bjørnar Olsen's work. And any of you students, Bjørnar Olsen is an archaeologist who I think is incredible. And so as I'm finishing this pendant, I'm going to do the final thing. And I turn to her and I say, well, you never showed me what the backs of these things look like. I never saw the back. I only saw the front. And I said, but what I want to do to make it secure and to make it beautiful, it needs to both be functional and beautiful. I want to do this. And she just sort of put her camera down and said, oh my God, that's exactly what they do. That is what the back is on many of them. And the object was leading me and telling me what to do, which is just a beautiful thing. And it's what we all talk about now in current philosophies. So that's how that reciprocity has taken place.
When I enter this space 45 minutes ago, one visitor was looking at the pieces, and she turned to me and said, "This is so medieval." And I would like you to talk a little bit about why, in particular, this, among many, many, many different artistic traditions, the medieval one plays such an important role in your work.
Well, back when I thought I was going to be an art historian, I studied for a year at Lund University in Sweden. And while I was there, I was, of course, surrounded by everything medieval. I think the cathedral there is from 1160 or something. And medieval art everywhere, and I knew nothing at that moment. And I really felt when I encountered these objects that they were asking something from me, that it wasn't like other art periods. I mean, I thought many things were beautiful at that point in my life. I mean, I was only 19, and I loved all the different periods of art. But what I felt with the medieval work is that I was in a relationship with it. There were inscriptions, there were gestures, there were body parts. Mm-hmm. They were contingent. They were special because we're being told they're special. Sort of the same thing with contemporary art. And I just felt that these objects wanted something from me. And of course, I love jewelry, and they felt like my size. And I don't know, it was just, of course, fantastic to me. Then years later, when I decided to go back to graduate school, I focused on the medieval period. And the professor I worked with was a medievalist. And I actually started doing research in a particular medieval brooch, that I just got a Fulbright to go and finish my research on that, which was from 15, 20 years ago. Anyway, so it's always been, now what I think is particularly compelling and important about the pre-modern period is that, to me, it completely dovetails with contemporary theory and philosophy. So new materialisms, Karen Barad's work, all of these things are like, well, they were already doing that. And there was this porosity with the material world. There was a reciprocity. There was sort of an ethical component, and I've just continued to work with that and those ideas, not as an anachronistic exercise, but a way to explore ways of being in the world that are relevant to us today. So I think those ideas are still very important. So it isn't, some dress-up fantasy thing. It's like these things are still relevant to all of us.
In what you said, I feel like there's already 10 questions I have that are simultaneous, so I want to sort a little bit of that and kind of bring it back to the work too, because, and you're talking through the work too, but the specific ones in this space. I'm glad you're talking about the effective quality of it and its relationship to medievalism and Karen Barad's work and vibrant matter and thinking about those kinds of relationships. And when I saw the piece in the exhibition that is The Heart, what is that one called?
Oh, the Archivan.
Archivan.
The last piece, which is all lead.
And that was the last piece you made?
Right.
Okay. So that one, and I hadn't seen the work at all. And then when I saw the work, I thought about, like you are talking about the linguistic kind of histories of the language of the forms to which you're referring. Like in that piece, you're thinking about the heart and its relationship to the word record. And you can talk about that a little bit. But also there's something about the agency of how you make the things. And when I saw that object, I thought, like, this feels like a heart. Before I read anything about it at all, it feels like a heart. It feels like the surface of the internal organs, the way you're folding the material and compressing it and sort of opening it back up. And I don't know if that's the way, but I feel like there's like a skin-like quality to it. So that folding, compression, the methodologies are kind of embedded in the thing. And then those have language and the material has language. The lead feels like leather. It feels like skin. And it's like it has agency in this way that you intellectually understand, but like actually in the thing, it's doing that. And so I feel like that's a really fascinating quality about the work. And I think especially this audience, like how do you work through things to do what you're saying they do, not tell someone it does that and you believe it, you suspend your disbelief and accept it, So can you talk about that really between language and material and
Definitely, I'm thinking about material as metaphor, and linguistically, our minds work through metaphor and metonymy, and so I'm leaning into that to make the work efficacious. And that piece, it has so many layers to it in my making, and of course, the pieces take a long time to make, so there's a lot of things. There's a constellation of experience that is going into it. But the centerpiece is like a book, but medieval people often considered the heart as a book, and that our memories and thoughts were inscribed upon the heart in a very material way. And so the heart was the seat of cognition and memory. It wasn't the brain. And so everything was happening through the heart, and it was a very porous organ that was meeting the world externally, outside the body. I mean, this is a pre-Cartesian paradigm. And so the heart is opening to the world, and it is breathing in and out with the world. And so that is sort of like a book. I don't like to be too literal, but definitely that front piece is like this opening out to the world. But then there are all these packets and that are all mostly lead. There's some silver as well. And there are memories of my mother was a couple generations ahead of me. My parents were much older when I was born. So she mangle ironed all of our sheets, and she ironed all of our rags, and we had good rags and bad rags, but everything was folded. And folding is one of those strategies to make something special or sacred, just like elevating or framing does that, or covering something. These are strategies different peoples around the world and through time have used. And folding something, to me, implies you're going to fold it and you're going to put it in the cupboard. And even if it's sheets, but also when it is something special, and you see in folk traditions, things very carefully folded to put in chests. And I was thinking of that domestic gesture of folding and how satisfying it is. And it feels like you're doing something important. You're making something happen. And then the other memory in it is that I also learned folding from my father, because at our jewelry store, we had forms that were made out of aluminum, I think, that were from my great-grandfather. Because we made all of our own envelopes, including our stone papers. So my dad taught me how to make envelopes from these forms. And so we would always fold all our own stone papers, and some of them are folded that way. So there's that memory of, you take care of something by putting it in a stone paper. And it's the same thing with our memories or things that we think about that are important to us. So there's all that layer. And then, of course, lead in itself is really very important to me. It's central to my work and always has been, because I often get asked if I'm an alchemist, and I'm like, actually, I'm really not, because I'm more inclined to want to become dust than to become gold. And so I don't have that inclination of transcending into gold. And I like the idea of, can't we just stay in the lead and kind of like settle in there? Because lead in alchemy is the oldest of all the seven metals, and it's the most impure. And there's this idea that if you burn lead, you burn off impurities, but it's like it's holding all of our flaws, our impurities, our wounds, and I really love. And then when you work with lead, you have to be so careful, because everything you do, it records every movement you do. And I like the idea of lead being that it's sort of distributing the weight, like the weight that we carry with whatever it is, regrets or memories, and it's a very old amuletic idea that an amulet can be a place to take refuge, and your soul can flee there when it's besieged. And you see this in many cultures, especially with baby amulets. And so I think of it in that regard as well, that the lead will help me hold the weight. It's working with me in that way, or whoever is wearing it. It's distributing the weight. And also with lead, of course, like with a plumb bob, that's the vertical. It's the vertical of the spirit horizontal, and it goes to the center of the earth. And our bodies physiologically are always trying to find homeostasis, and I kind of think that with the jewelry, that it's helping us find homeostasis in the world.
You work with a relatively limited set of materials and colors. There's kind of an aesthetic quality.
Yes.
So I would like you to talk a little bit about that aspect.
Yes, there's definitely a discipline to that. I like a very narrow, I want to bring myself and the viewer into a very narrow field of vision. And I think what that does is it's sort of then it reverses it into an internal conversation. And because color is definitely a subject, and I love color, but in my work, I want to narrow the field of vision and turn it to an introspection, and I like things very quiet, still, but also vibrating. And I find that the dark palette is definitely a place of generativity, and like anything can happen. I like being in the place where all these things could be possible, because it sort of feels that you could change things. And that goes back to the lead and the gold as well. And yeah, and it's definitely, I think about it as a discipline in the making. I like to think a certain way while I'm making. I like to set up the atmosphere in a certain way, and I feel that I can express what I'm thinking more when I am very limited.
Go ahead.
Please.
Well, there's so many questions still. I could just go rapid fire. What you're saying is bringing me so much to when we walked into the space yesterday. I didn't
Yes.
even tell you I'm going to ask this necessarily. So we walked into the space and Yevgenia was saying, like, I expected to be met with, like, the work would meet me intellectually, but really my body just started vibrating. So this, like, vibration of the work in space, like, it was, again, like doing that thing. And anyway, and the spatial quality of the work was doing that. And historically, you've always done like performative work, and you've always like this strip of mirror where the eye kind of meets you, and the kind of as you look at the objects, you receive your gaze back. So there's ways that you've been contextualizing the work, but this feels like a kind of another step further, and it's like the spatial relationships, the sound, like deeply immersive, the kind of dim glows of light on the objects, they're kind of glimmering back at you. And can you talk about that a little bit, or do you want to talk about that a little bit? It feels like a
Well, and
shift.
it also kind of dovetails into what you had posed about how do I stage things.
Right.
Yes, yes. So I was thinking, your approach to jewelry is quite expensive in the sense that it accommodates these understandings of jewelry as doing more than just the work of ornamentation, right?
Right.
Jewelry can produce effects in the world of
Yes.
different kind. It affects the wearer, it affects the world beyond the wearer, right? And so there is this element of agency, right? Object agency, which is a subject that has preoccupied scholars in recent years
Yeah.
under the rubric of new
Right.
materialism. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of that work has been really about agency, and so I would like to ask you to talk a little bit about how you approach the agency of the physical stuff, right, in your work, and where against the background of our modern world, which is increasingly sort of disenchanted. So is your project about reenchantment? Is it about discovering these kind of hidden forces and making them manifest? And how that happens, right? How that happens? Is it about the manipulation of materials? Is it about the staging? Is it about bodily experience? How is that agency being communicated and made manifest and felt in your work?
Well, there's a lot there, and I want to address ornament first. I follow the work of Ananda Coomaraswamy very much, and he talks about the Sanskrit word alamkas, which means ornament, but he's a scholar of Indian art and medieval art. He's dead, but and he talks about this word meaning ornament, but it doesn't mean in our contemporary sense of art for art's sake, and it certainly does not mean showing off skill. What it means is it is about making us properly equipped. It is to fully equip, whether you are a poem, an animal, a human, a song. They use that word a lot in traditional Indian music. You use ornament in a way that properly equips things.
And completes.
And completes.
Yeah.
And you aren't completed without ornament. So it's about, so the word doesn't mean the first two things. What it means, it's about communication. It's about rhetoric. It's about persuasion. And that's really at the heart of my work. I'm wanting to use the work to persuade. And so that's where I'm coming from with the ornament. And some ideas require restraint, and some ideas require exuberance in terms of ornament. Like a Baroque church needs what it needs. A modernist, mid-century architecture needs restraint. So you have to meet the idea with what it needs to be properly equipped, is the way I think about it. And so that gets to the agency too. Things need what they need to be efficacious in the world. And I did many projects a number of years ago, one of which Ivan participated in. It was called Conjugation. And what I learned, so what I was interested in is what happens when you take an everyday occurrence like the verb to be. We use it all day long. And you very gently put a ritual frame on it. It completely transforms the space and the people that are in the frame. We as humans are homo ritualis. We respond immediately to ritual. You'd hardly have to do anything and people tip over in it. I mean, because we have ritual all day long. Same with magic. And so I was interested in doing these ritual frameworks and setting it up and seeing how things changed, what changed in the communication. And so I used to do that to produce, to hopefully produce an effect with people. And it always was about objects as well. But now with this work, and it gets back to my my background, growing up in a jewelry business for 5 generations. My dad was a master watchmaker, and growing up, I mean, that's what we talked about at the dinner table. It was always about what was happening with jewelry. And jewelry I always saw it doing things in the world. It was a verb. It was out there jeweling all the time. And it did its job. So I have never doubted what jewelry is doing. I just know that I have full confidence in it, which is why I wrote in the artist statement that jewelry knows what it's doing. It understands the task. I don't have to tell it what to do. It's going to do it. And so this work is really the realization of that. That is, I have to have confidence that if I do my job and if I pay attention to the materials and the concepts, that then the jewel will do its work because it knows what to do already.
I feel like in your work that you talk about jewelry like bearing witness to our relationships and holding our memories and our secrets and having divine, enacting divine relationships, you know, and I think about this baby jewelry, like for Middle Eastern babies, you get turquoise and gold jewelry and it's supposed to keep the evil eye off you for life.
Yeah.
And so I hold that in my bag always. I always have, and and I believe that it will do that. And so, but I feel like when I met you, you also believe that jewelry did those things, and there's so many ways that jewelry kind of operates. And so can you talk just a little bit more? I mean, you're starting to talk about that, and even the relationship of coming into the underworld and Inanna and that kind of history and the kind of, you need gifts to reciprocate with along the way.
And and we should probably talk a little bit about the underworld. My husband and I were in Italy a year ago, and we were at Dante's tomb, and they have a project where they're reciting the Inferno all the time. Somebody's up there reading it. And it was right during the election, and I just wept, and I thought, that's where we're going, and we need what do we need? And I thought, old technology is what we need. We need something. The underworld isn't going to recognize our cell phones, or I think it was Martin Shaw, the poet storyteller, said the underworld doesn't want us coming with the stink of the internet, and it doesn't. I mean, it doesn't. And so, how do we equip ourselves? What do we need? And so that was the genesis of this exhibition. And to me, the story of Inanna, and I'm not going to go into the whole story. You can look it up because it's powerful and it's relevant, and it's always relevant. That's why it continues to be told. But when you look it up now, it's been psychologized. There's a lot of Jungian psychology around it, which is also fine. That's a fine read of it. But I'm more interested in these other aspects of the story, not a completion of myself. I feel like I'm already complete because of jewelry. Jewelry is what makes me complete. And so when Inanna goes to the underworld, she's immediately killed by her sister, Ereshkigal, and hung on a hook. And as she passes through the 7 gates, she has to give ornaments at each gate. She has to strip down. And so there's that. We need to both be equipped, and we also have to have something to offer. And jewelry is a thing we've always had, whether we're a Jew during World War II or many situations through history. Jewelry is the thing that's got us out. And so, so after the 3rd day that she's down there, they know she's down there and she needs to be rescued. And you can't just send someone down because they'll be killed. A living person can't go to the underworld. So my favorite part of the story, and which has direct relevance to the work, especially the eye piece, is that her father, Enki, takes the dirt from underneath his nails and he makes 2 androgynous creatures that can slip through the gates of the underworld undetected. No one's going to notice them. They're just these quiet little pieces of dirt. And they sneak down in there. And this is the part that's most important that a lot of the tellings don't focus on. They come down and Ereshkigal is travailing, she's grieving, she's raging, and she's tearing her hair and really in a state. And these 2 beings just quietly sit and they mirror back to her what she's saying. So in the ballad, they repeat back to her the things she's yelling. They witness her, they witness what is happening, why she's so mad, because certainly her sister didn't. And finally, Ereshkigal sort of is arrested by this and stops, and it's like, there's so much empathy from these creatures that are witnessing her pain. And then she stops and says, I'll give you anything you want. And long story short, they want Inanna, who's hanging on the hook, and they get her and take her back. But to me, the crux of the story is this witnessing that creates true empathy for the other. And I think of this idea in both the forms, in the one piece that has the eyes on it, it's a wound, it's a vulva, it's an eye, it's a multivalent shape. And it's also a mandorla, which is 2 intersecting circles in sacred geometry. It's a place where it's a place of transformation and where entities can exist together without absorbing one another. And so the expository wound is well established in Western art, from Middle Ages to Caravaggio to Joseph Beuys. And I'm thinking about that, this exposing the wound and finding the remedy within the wound. And that that witness comes from, I get asked if it's about the evil eye. And
I don't think
the evil eye is the name for that in Latin is invidia, which literally means, if you go back to Sanskrit, is to not see. And to witness, which comes from the same root, means to not only see, but to understand. So I'm thinking of those layers of meaning of witnessing ourselves and witnessing others, and that we take the wound. And there are lots of stories about a wound turning into an eye. That's established in mythology too, where a wound becomes an eye that then protects you. So we're using the wound, and we have to expose it. We have to look for the remedy there.
That piece is doing a number of things, but it is also quite hefty.
Yes.
As well as a couple of other pieces in this room. And I'm really intrigued by this aspect of jewelry, which doesn't get to be discussed often, and that has to do with the weight of jewelry, right? And I would like you to talk a little bit about that, perhaps in particular in relation to the jet scapular.
Okay. Yes, the jet scapular is made so that it's equally weighted, so that you can wear it with the front and back, and it presses on you, and or you can put it around and have it both on your chest. And as you know from jewelry around the world, and historically, people wore big jewelry, and Westerners are sort of allergic to that. And having grown up in the jewelry business and done many commissions, the minute someone says to me, well, I want something very small. And it's like, but why? I mean, people all over the world, if you've been to India, women are breaking up rock and rubble they're fully equipped to do it. They would never dream of going out without all their glass bracelets and everything. So it's just what you get used to. So the weight, I've always leaned into the weight and have been a little bit contrary that way. But I also try to make things so that they are imminently wearable, but it's a durational thing. When someone says, well, but is this wearable? And my answer is always, well, for how long? Yeah, it's just a question of how long you're going to wear it. And so yes, and also the weight pressing into the body and giving you a feeling of the thing as an embodied experience.
Yeah. And why jet?
Well, jet, of course, was used in Victorian jewelry, as all of you know, and but it was also used in the medieval era. There's a bowl that they found that's carved, and it's presumed that it was used during childbirth. And during childbirth, they were using these chants to make the thing happen. And that's another thing I'm doing in my work with the chants, which we can talk about. But this jet bowl was carved, and what they think is that the woman drank out of it and then got the essence of the jet into her body. But it could also be that they dissolved prayers or different things into the water that she ingested. And I've been very interested in that, the ingesting of things for magical purposes. But in my piece with the jet, it's a raw piece of jet. I've done nothing to it. And I wanted to just leave it as it was, just to display the intrinsic power, magical power of the material itself, without doing anything to it. I try to do as little as possible to things. I try to be very light-handed with everything. I mean, although it looks like there's a lot of complexity, I'm using very basic skills and being very light about things.
I'm just noticing that maybe, do you realize 45 minutes have
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that incredible?
You guys keep going.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Some time for the audience to ask some questions.
Yeah, that's
Was
what
there
I'm wondering.
one other thing I wanted to
wondering
say
if there's
is
other things
that
before we have to transition. Yeah, there's so much to say. We could talk for 7 hours, I'm sure.
Well, one thing I
have
wish
so many questions still.
that I had put in the catalog, and I'm feeling a little almost ashamed that I didn't, because one of my very favorite things that demonstrates everything about this exhibition, it should have been the name of the exhibition.
What?
Tell us.
There's a medieval brooch a lot of things were inscribed, or there were bells or all different things in the first person. And the Alfred jewel, I was made for, or I was made by. But there's a brooch that is translated as, I am love and I cause men to love. And I think that sums up how I feel about what I'm trying to do with the work. And that this brooch is saying that. This is what I do. And I should have put that as a quote, to quote an actual piece, an actual material piece, but I guess I human-centered it. So it's a habit, and that's what we've been brainwashed to do. So I don't know, is there anything else?
Yeah. Well, let's
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions? Well, first of all, that's
Thank you. It was like 5 minutes.
I've been really lucky to have the pleasure of working on a show with Lori, and every time I call her and say things like, can you send me your inventory list, she says things like, let's talk about descending into the underworld. Then here's this hour-long podcast that I want you to listen to. And I listen to it and I'm listening for like, I'm trying, I don't know what I'm doing. So it's really incredible to have you guys having this conversation here for all of us. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Don, Friedlich, let's hear
So
you.
first of all, wonderful panel. always love hearing you speak, and the exhibition's spectacular. I'm dying to see what they look like on.
Well, we can do that. They're very wearable and handleable.
It was really, I mean, it's part of the temptation of it. It's really hard to resist. As a maker and as a friend, at this point.
Yeah.
You want to get your hands on it.
Tactility to the word, right? That you know, that you can't, when you're looking down on it, which is how we've set it up, which is intentional, right? So that there is a distance from the pieces. But I think what we'll have a chance to do after is walk around, and Lori will pick up the pieces and we can try them on as long as you don't wreck them.
The tactile is also,
Yeah,
to me,
the
that's a
whole-
very underappreciated and underrecognized side of jewelry.
Yeah, and you talked about the dangling parts on the crown. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to say one other thing about language and matter because you'd asked that question. So, you know, it's an anti-postmodern position, but I am thinking about symbolic realism, that there's a meaning embedded in a word, that it's there. And the A amulet was considered powerful in the Middle Ages, standing for Amor Vincit Omnia or Ave Maria. And so during COVID, I made hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of A's as a prayer and as a way to mark time, because some of these chants were used to measure time. And so that's how I was measuring this weird time period. And so I was doing these, and then they eventually found their way into the work, and I was making the work, and I started thinking of it as, you know, the chant. Enchanted literally means to be within a song, and when you have that in a necklace, you're standing within the chant. And I'm using strategies from old ballads and traditional singing, where the refrain is the thing that is driving you repeat the refrain, and it's driving the point each time deeper into the heart. And it's many times more ornamented. So like a Chanot singer in Ireland or a Gregorian chant, you ornament the most important words, or a gospel singer will sing a song straight until, and then when they really want to drive it home, they start the melisma and they start the ornamentation, and they're driving the point. So I'm using repetition in that way. For me, the repetition of these elements are about driving the point into the viewer's or the wearer's heart a little deeper. So I'm using these different, I use a lot of things from folk traditions. And when you are trained in a folk tradition, you are already inhabiting a magical universe. It's a given, you're part of that. And so Ivan had asked me if this is a project of re-enchantment. Well, it's not the world that's disenchanted, it's humans that have become disenchanted, because our brains haven't changed. We still operate within frameworks of magic and ritual, whether we know it or not. And so like I said, it doesn't take much to persuade people. So.
This might be a trick question, but you only had to, I guess, live with one medieval text for the rest of your life. And as somebody who also loves medieval times, like, I guess just wondering, to pick your brain, like, what is one text that you would
Like if I had to pick one?
pick one, like your favorite?
Oh my God. Okay, well, I'm going to pick one that I think it kind of relates. The Dream of the Rood is the most beautiful beautiful text, because it's the crucifixion of Christ told by the point of view of the tree. And Yevgenia, I don't know, you'd love that. Who's working with trees, and does a chair remember it was a tree? And so the Dream of the Rood is the tree's point of view, having the nails driven into it, the blood dripping down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And
No. The medievalists know.
Didn't
yeah.
we do this too?
The medievalists know of it.
so it's
And Sulo.
of course it's a beautiful, and I love that because it's Yeah, we all know why we would love that, and it's beautiful. And then, you know, of course, I love Beowulf because there's a lot of jewelry, and you know, I always feel bad for Grendel and kind of associate more with Grendel than anybody else. But but Dream of the Rood. I'm going to stick with my answer.
There was a question here, yeah.
Oh, thank you. I apologize, I came in late, so sorry to already talk about this, but I wanted to ask you about your work process a little bit. Does the discovery happen during your research before you work on metals or materials, or is it more during the process of touching and being in that space?
That's a good question. I am trained to render, but I never do it anymore. I collage things. I just feel I work intuitively, which is a little bit of a cliche. But after I've done all this research, then I just sit down and start thinking, how does this need to be? And working with materials that seem to want to be together. I have a table where I have everything. Some things stay there for a very long time until it's like, oh, these are in love. And then the two together are more powerful. They somehow activate each other. And so that's what I'm doing. And I put things together and take things apart millions of times. And one of my friends who's a master embroiderer in Norway who does the traditional shirts and jewelry, which no restraint, because it needs to operate in the world in that way with no restraint. It needs to completely bombard the viewer and enchant them. And she told me that, oh yes, you have to unpick something 7 times. And I unpick a lot of stitches because I don't know what it's going to look like until I put it together. And then it's that thing of, and you really have to sink into that failure of, you just have to hold it's just like, well, here, you unpick the whole thing and you redo it and you just submit to it.
I need to add that you just unpicked something a couple weeks ago. Send me a picture of it before and then after, and I was like, okay. Looks the same to me.
Well, that's what
for you were like, isn't this so much better?
It's an energy thing.
I believe you. So I assume that action goes into peace, right? That's sort of what you
it's that devotion. Yeah. And beauty is attracted to fidelity. And
Lori Talcott.
I believe it. I totally believe it. It's like you have to do it until it finds the sweet spot. Mm-hmm. So I don't draw things or anything like that.
Thank you. Barbara?
I wonder if you could talk about the textiles that you chose to stand up to these metal ornaments.
Well, all of the wool backing is a very, very, very old piece of wool that I found when I was living in Norway at one point it's this, when I show it to textile artists, they're like, oh my God, what is this? It's just, and the process of making wool is a magical process. And from the beginning to all the way through how it's taken care of in the folk traditions. And so it is considered amuletic and powerful. And so this wool is very sturdy and can stand up to what I sew into it. And then the ribbons are all vintage ribbons that I find. And so I use that combination. And then I often use there's a Japanese suturing thread that's silk that I sometimes use. But I try to make them so they hang they're not going to fall apart.
And also have the same kind of magical quality.
Yeah. I always consider all the materials that they need to be amuletic and powerful on their own, intrinsically.
Did Jana have a question? Jana?
What role does love play in your work?
Love? Yes, well, it's like the brooch. I was made for love, and I cause men to love, and I think about that in the work. It's like, that's what I want people, when you read the Amor Vincit Omnia, I don't want it to be a Girl Scout motto. It's about what do you put your attention to, that's the thing you love.
I feel like everyone here can probably agree with that.
Yeah, I think so. But it seems like it still needs to be, a point needs to be made.
Let's get up and walk
Okay.
around and thank
Yeah,
you guys.
thank you.